Okay, our last writer this evening is Preeta Samarasan. It's an honor to have her here. She's been doing book tours all over the States and all over the world. Preeta Samarasan grew up in Ipoh, studied at the convent of the Holy Infant Jesus, the same school I went to, but I am, of course, many years your senior, and then went to the United States and graduated with an MFA in creative writing from the University of Michigan. Her first novel, Evening is the Whole Day, published this year, has been critically acclaimed internationally, and she's been compared to Salman Rushdie and Arundhati Roy. She's now working on her second novel, set in Cameron Highlands. She lives in a small village in central France with her husband Rob and their dog. Please welcome Preeta Samarasan.
Thank you everyone for coming tonight and staying until this late hour, and thanks Bernice for the introduction and for setting this up. It's really great to be here tonight. I'm going to read the sex scene in my book. There's only one sex scene. I haven't read it in Malaysia yet, but I've read it elsewhere several times. And half of my audiences giggle like school children, and the other half maintain a horrified silence throughout. So let's see which category you fall into. I'm not going to tell you which one gives me more satisfaction. So my book is about an upper-class Indian family, and this chapter, the sex scene is the wedding night of the parents in the family, Appa and Amma. It takes place in Ipoh, and I'm not sure, it's 1961, and I'm not sure that there's anything else I need to tell you. Just this morning, in the master bedroom of the big house, one of Appa's officious aunts, her heavy hips swathed in a gaudy sarong, had maneuvered her breathy way around the double bed, pulling the clean white sheets a little too tight, folding the thin blue wool blanket and placing it demurely at the foot of the bed. Appa had walked down the corridor while she had been making the bed and happened to catch her eye. He had avoided her for the rest of the day, even at the wedding, more out of consideration for her shaken sensibilities than any embarrassment of his own. Now he sat down on the bed, lowering his bottom carefully onto one corner, as if he wished to take up no room on it, to mar its creaseless perfection as little as possible with the twin dents of his buttocks. He pulled off his shoes and then the black sport jacket, already sweat-soaked on the inside of its collar from the half hour since he'd left the air-conditioned banquet hall of the Ipoh Club. He tugged off his bow tie, unbuttoned his shirt, and sat watching Amma, elbows on knees, casual as a man in a cigarette advertisement, desperate to convince himself that it was proper and natural for his cotton singlet to be showing in front of a girl who had probably learned only that morning, if, dear God, some stoic and self-sacrificing aunt had filled in for the duties that should have been her mother's, what was to happen in this bed tonight. Out of her suitcase, Amma delicately extracted a white eyelet cotton nightgown. As Appa heard the bathroom lock click into place, the bolt follow it, the tap gush, he thought of a girl he'd known in Singapore who had slipped off her panties and peed in front of him as he'd stood talking to her in the doorway of her tiny bathroom. Afterwards, in her bed, they'd eaten a whole roast chicken with their hands. Wooden blinds, the kind that usually hung outside Chinese shophouses, covered her windows. A ceiling fan grey with dust stirred the webs of two spiders in a corner of the room. The roast chicken had been fatty and salty, and 3/4 of the way through it, the girl, what was her name? Mei-Yin, Su-Yin, had run downstairs and out into the street in nothing but a batik house dress pulled over her naked body, to buy them 2 packets of iced sugarcane water, sweet and sticky and sweating on the outsides when she brought them into the bedroom. But he decided to leave all that behind. The women who slurped noodles in their underwear, the women who smoked skinny cigarettes and swore like bottle shop men, the women who compared him to former lovers or speculated out loud about future ones. He had chosen this instead, not for the sake of novelty, nor merely to defy the consternation of his colleagues and his mother, although that gave him private satisfaction. He had chosen this life that begins tonight, he thought, and his whiskey-slowed heart stirred and soared, because he believed in goodness and simplicity, in the value of a blank slate, in his own power to exalt and educate. The unfamiliar path stretched before him, doubt, regret, a sudden reluctance to make the sacrifices he had pledged. All these were normal, he told himself. All these would pass. Tonight he must set himself the most modest of goals, only to try not to turn up the heat of Vasanti's already stifling discomfort. So Appa, who had once, and not so long ago, walked stark naked and nonchalant, cock flopping, balls swinging like two mangosteens in a net bag, around that Singapore girl's room, and around other girls' rooms in other shop houses, and further around the larger and more impressive rooms and flats and houses of still more girls and some women too. Now seized these minutes of Amma's private preparations to undress himself in a flash and slip into his silk pajamas. Then he spread the wool blanket and arranged himself in a suitably patient, unconcerned attitude under it. The bathroom tap ceased its gushing, the bolt slid back. Very quietly, faint as the tapping of a fingernail in a dream, the lock clicked open. For a moment, Amma stood in the bathroom doorway, her thin legs showing under the nightgown in the bright light. Then she switched off the light and walked, silent except for her breath, towards the bed. In the moonlight, he saw her put out her hand and pat the pillow as if to make sure it was there, then lay down and stretch out her legs on top of the blanket instead of under it. "Nice big window," she said, looking out the window. "You must be tired. Quite early you must have had to wake up for them to dress you." He waited, half hoping she would grab this rope, agree that she was exhausted, turn away and curl up on her side. Stray jasmine buds clung to her loosened hair in places, recalling the strings of flowers that had been braided into it for the chaste scent that was wasted on him. I forgot to mention Appa doesn't have a sense of smell. He reached out and plucked a single bud from her hair, and then, unsure what to do with it, he let it fall to the floor. "Oh, not too early," she said. If she'd noticed him touch her hair, she gave no sign of it. 6:37, something like that, I got up. I'm okay. Should he invite her to tuck herself under the blanket? If he contrived to pull it out from under her and spread it over her himself, would the gesture come off more brutish than chivalric? Should he simply climb out from under it? In the end, he went with the third option to avoid either verbal or mechanical awkwardness. On that England-imported blanket his father had purchased for the house during his emphatically domestic retirement, Appa and Amma had pungent, painful sex for the first time. He didn't know what else to say, and so said nothing more. He, a man of words, if of nothing else, consummate spinner of sweet nothings in all 4 major Malaysian languages, whisperer of naughty suggestions into the ears of giggling waitresses. The moonlight seeped stubbornly in through the lace curtains, and he wished she could switch this last light off, just as she'd switched off all the others. He wished several other things besides, that Amma would close her eyes or at least turn her head, so that he would not be faced with her mildly puzzled frown, that his own senses, save his mercifully impotent nose, were not so uncannily, distressingly heightened, for every creak of the bed frame echoed in his ears, and each one of Amma's meek twitches shook his consciousness gale-like. He wished that he had pressed upon her the option of delaying the deed until tomorrow. Tomorrow, her wedding nerves subsided, she would not have been quivering before the mythical hurdle of the wedding night. "Let's get some sleep," he could have said, kindly, lightly, after paying her some reassuring compliment or other. "We're both exhausted." He fished around now for fantasies, but this moment, the creaks, the twitches, the knees knocking shins, the elbows driving into ribs, Amma's eyes, huge and incandescent in the moonlight, permitted none. He wondered idly why his penis had never felt quite so much like a battering ram, although 1 or 2 of his girlfriends had been virgins. Maybe it's just as well to get it over with tonight, he told himself. Maybe this way, tomorrow will be better. In the end, there had been no need for the subtlety of the blanket, since Amma never moved to take off her steadily less virginal nightgown, and Appa, when he thought of it, was stopped by a vague sense that this would be cruel in some petty way, like forcing a cat to walk through a puddle. Amma, too, reasoned with herself. Every married woman has to go through this, isn't it? Nobody enjoys it. Anyway, it won't be every night. He's always so busy and preoccupied with his work. After staying late at the office, he'll be too tired. It's okay. I'm okay. Look at the moon outside, how low it has come, like it's hanging from the guava tree by a string only. For 10 minutes, she concentrated all her desperate energies on that large yellow moon. When this became an insufficient distraction from what was going on down there, she shut her eyes and ears like windows and slipped effortlessly out of her skin to hover just below the ceiling. Rapt, incredulous, she watched the bodies on the bed until the sight shamed her, She drew her breath in until she could hold no more air, and then disappeared in a quiet puff of smoke. On the main road, a cement lorry swerved, its brakes screeching to avoid a stray dog out on a nocturnal hunt. A cicada fell silent, exhausted by its hours of ecstatic song. When once more she found herself on that wide bed, Appa lay beside her with his eyes closed, his pajama bottoms pulled up and re-knotted at the waist. She slid her legs off the bed and shuffled back to the bathroom, shutting and locking and bolting the door behind her before switching on the light. Before Appa fell asleep, he saw her feet in the sliver of light under the bathroom door, immobile, probably rooted to the floor in front of the mirror, probably cold. It was minutes before she stepped away towards the toilet. Thanks.